When I tell a story that costs me something, but I feel like it'll help the people I'm telling it to, those are the stories that seem to matter.
Ray Edwards is one of the world's top copywriters. His words have generated over $500 million for clients like Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Michael Hyatt. I could keep going, but his most powerful story is not about his marketing success. In 2011, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and what happened next led him down a road to deconstruct everything that he believed and rebuild his faith literally from the ground up. If you are wrestling with your faith, maybe you just need to hear a perspective that's going to stop you in your tracks. Friend, you better sit down for this one. This is Ray Edwards. I don't know how I met you. It's the internet. The internet is such a weird, amazing place. I told you before we hit record, normally historical Heather would run across someone like you, Ray, who has worked with people I've followed for years and have learned so much from, and to learn that you've been behind their copywriting, you've been behind a lot of their businesses, you've consulted with the best of the best. You're just a brilliant, like I said, the receipts are there, brilliant copywriter and communicator. Historically, if I would have ran across somebody like you, I'd want to talk all about your secrets and your hacks and figure out how I too can become a better communicator. But for some reason, when I started looking at your work, something inside of me was like, don't talk to him about that. Talk to him about something else. And you were generous enough to take a few minutes out of your day and have a deep ass conversation with a random stranger on the internet. So thank you. Thank you for jumping on. I'll start us off with us being on an imaginary airplane, and that annoying stranger looks up over at you and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you choose to respond to that?
I'm a writer.
That's it? I'm a writer?
Yeah, I used to have a much longer response. But
tell me the real response. I want to hear it.
Tell you the what?
The real response. What would you tell them?
The real response. I'm a human being trying to figure out what's true. I write about it. I share it with other people. And hopefully I'm getting closer to the answer.
Damn. I never sit next to people like that on the airplane. That's such a cool answer. What are you trying to figure out what's true? What do you mean by that?
What's true about life? Like, why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing here? What are we? I have my beliefs that I will share if people want to know what they are. I don't feel that's that important that I do that. I used to be a convincer. I mean, I was in the evangelical church and I did the evangelism explosion. I don't know if you ever did that.
No,
Evangelism explosion. It's salesmanship for Christians. We would literally, like vacuum cleaner salespeople, go out and knock on doors, and we'd come back to the church after it was over, and it'd be like, "How many did you get?" Like, yeah, that's what Jesus wants us to do. He wants us to go get people.
No, I did that. I did a version of that where I forgot what it was called, but you would go and you would pray before, and then you would get a word. It's like prophetic stuff. And it would be like, there's a guy named Ray, and he's wearing a red hat and he's buying milk. And then you would go to the milk section and you wait for the redhead guy and you go, "Are you Ray?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." And you'd show him that you wrote that down and like, "This is proof."
Treasure hunting. We did that. We did lots of that.
It works.
It does work. We saw amazing things happen. We saw people get scared and run away. We had a few hostile folks. "I don't want to join your cult."
Yeah.
But wait, it's a good cult. You'll like it.
It's the right one. It's the right one.
Yeah.
I told you before, I've been really interested in two main topics in this season of my life. And I think, there's seasons where I've dipped my toe in a lot of different stuff. But over the past couple of years, the creativity bug has really hit me. where I've been learning a lot about artists and content creators and the muse and how people, just get inspired by stuff. And I'm just so fascinated. And then this past spring, I was in Rome with my family and I just felt, I can't even explain it. It was so strong. It was like, Heather, start talking about spirituality on the show. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I've been running away from that and I'm avoiding that. And I feel like I just got healed from all that. Please don't ask me to do that. But here we are. And I was so amused and excited. And like, of course, Ray Edwards, when I looked at, like, I just knew you, like, oh, wow, he's a badass copywriter who's worked with freaking John Acuff, which is so cool.
John is one of the nicest human beings I've ever
I'm so
met
glad
in
to
my
hear
life.
that. I'm so glad to hear that.
He's much nicer than he even appears on the internet.
That's a relief to hear that. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. So I followed you back and then started seeing that you're a spiritual guy and you're a Christian and you love Jesus, but you still cuss a little and all that. And I'm like, wow, I got to talk to him. I got to know what's going on in your world. So yes, we can talk about copywriting and that piece, but I just want to hear a little bit of your story behind why Jesus for you and where you're just kind of at in your walk. I mean, it's an interesting place to be an entrepreneur and a Christian too.
So I used to, when I would do interviews, I'd be all prepared. I'd have notes about what I was going to say. So I made sure I said it right. I did not do that today.
Good.
I just came open to talk about whatever comes up. Why Jesus for me? I think the honest answer is because I was born in Kentucky and I grew up with Jesus. It was not a question of do you believe? It was, this is how it is from as early as I can remember. And I remember being a young lad of, 8 or 9, talking to one of my aunts. Only in Kentucky, we don't call them aunts. We call them Auntie Melvie, about Jesus and faith. And she told me, she'd say, well, honey, if you got enough faith in Jesus, you can walk out in a rainstorm and declare, I'll be dry and it'll not touch you. I can't tell you how many rainstorms I've walked out in and said, I'll be dry, and it still touched me. And I thought, I failed terribly. Melvie knew something I didn't know. So grew up, went through the thing a lot of people do. I started reading books and going to science class and thinking, wait a minute, this sounds a little different than what I was taught in church about how the world was created, and had differences, and talked to the pastor, and he told me, those are questions you should not ask. And so I began to be a little more jaded, but I was a full adult before I just completely walked away from the church and thought it was all fairy tales and fantasy. And
what kind of church was it? Was it evangelical Christian, non-denominational? Baptist. Gotcha.
You got it.
Yeah. I didn't. Baptist and Pentecostal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was in and out for a while. We had a child that I was 20 years old when my wife and I had our son.
20.
Yeah. What was I thinking? I don't know. Now I look back, her parents didn't like me much. And now I know why. I'm like, they're looking, thinking, why is she marrying this stupid kid? He doesn't even know what life is yet.
Yeah.
And they were right. But I love them. We came to be very close. Anyhow, I later, I'm trying to shorten this up. I became enamored with getting rich and famous. I was in radio broadcasting at the time. I was a DJ. I was working my way up the markets, town to town, up and down the dial.
I can hear that in your voice. I can hear that.
Well, my voice is a lot different now but thank you for saying that. I left the radio business when Steve Jobs came out with the iPod, because I was like, at the time I was in charge of the country radio seminar agenda committee, biggest radio broadcasting seminar in the world at the time.
Wow.
Programmers, general managers, and sales guys all came together. And I said to the committee, I said, guys, this iPod thing is changing everything. Plus there's MP3s in the sky. They're going to come down into our phones. And they're like, oh, that's just a trend. And I'm like, okay, you guys are dead. You just don't know it yet. So I found out I could do what I was doing in radio for free, writing ad copy, and get paid a lot of money for it. So I did. And I started getting paid lots of money for writing. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I got paid $15,000 for writing a letter that sold stuff. And I'm like, I have died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
What could be better?
Yeah.
But age 46, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and I had already gone down the Bethel rabbit hole with charismatic healing ministries. I mean, at the time we found out about the Parkinson's, right before that, my wife and I had both gone to the healing school at Bethel. I wasn't sick at all then. I don't think Bethel caused it. I'm be clear about that. Sounded too close together there, the way I was telling it. But I was convinced we were going to become healing evangelists because we prayed for people. We saw them get healed.
Wow.
Amazing stuff happened. I mean, I had a friend who had stage 4 cancer. His doctor told him, there's no way you're going to live. We can't even treat you anymore. We prayed for him, and 6 months later, he had 0 cancer. That was over 10 years ago. He's still alive today. His doctor said, that's a miracle. And I believe that's true. I also saw a lot of stuff I know was psychosomatic healing. I also saw a lot of stuff I knew was fake, not on the part of any of the Bethel people, but
Sure.
I think you get in a big crowd of large group training situation and people want to comply with the leaders. They don't want to disappoint anybody. So they'll feel better and say they're better, and they're not.
Yeah.
But I took everybody at face value. And then I got the Parkinson's diagnosis, and I honestly, Heather, this is what I thought. I was scheduled to speak at the Healing Rooms International Conference here in Spokane, Washington on my birthday. The day before that, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I said to my wife, this is what I said, that's good. This will be a great testimony for our ministry. I'll get healed.
Wow.
And I got prayed for, and I didn't get healed. And that was almost 15 years ago. And I've had, I don't know if you can see these little knobs on my head here. This is where they did the brain surgery. That allows me to function and speak almost normally now. I've got a little implant, a little computer that stimulates my brain with electromagnetic signals. And so during that whole, there's a whole long drawn out story of doubt and questioning and depression and anxiety. And I'm like, God, what did I do wrong? I mean, all these other people I've seen get healed. I've seen people be healed of Parkinson's. I've seen it with my own eyes. And yet, why not me? And I've learned that question is not really a good question to ask, because why not me? Why me? Why did I get Parkinson's? Why not me? Mine's not special. Everybody's got something they're carrying. That's what I've learned. But that took me into doubt. I deconstructed. I went the whole way down that rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, I'm going to read all the atheists, Dawkins.
Because you were angry.
I didn't know. I wouldn't have said that at the time. I would have said, no, I'm just curious. I want to be intellectual about this and be smart about it. I was just pissed off.
Yeah.
I was mad. I was mad at people who had taught me. I was mad at God. And fortunately, he's not afraid of me being mad at him. I don't think he's afraid of questions. I say he just because that's the culture I was brought up in. I think to narrow him down to a gender like that is probably a very human thing to do. He's not, this is what I know about God. There's a few things I know about him. God is mysterious, and he's not just a bigger one of us. Because if he was, man, would that be scary.
God, this is going to be a really good conversation. I told you before, I was like, you're a really fascinating person, and this is what I meant. Here's what I heard, and tell me if I'm on the right path here. So you grew up religious, spiritual, whatever, kind of went another way where it doesn't sound like you were like, this is totally dumb. I'm just, just not really dabbling in it. And then for some reason you get into Bethel, which I want to know what the catalyst for that, because going from like, I'm not involved in anything to freaking Bethel is like jumping off the deep end. Then you deconstruct, and it sounds like you've reconstructed again. So what a journey. Let's go back to the Bethel piece. Like, you're living your life, doing your thing. What was the catalyst for that? Because the folks who are listening who don't know, Bethel is a very, very, very into like the supernatural and the Holy Spirit, and very much about like just kind of the prophetic space. And so that's out in California. Look it up. So what brought you there?
The same person who brought me back to the church. I should fill in the gaps. I mean, long about age 19 or 20, I had left the religion altogether. I told people I'm not a Christian anymore. Yeah. But then we had a son, and then he grew up to about 9 or 10 years old. And we started thinking about, Lynn and I started thinking about, who's he hanging out with? Who's going to be a good influence for him? And he started asking us all these questions we didn't want to answer, like, what happens when we die? And I was giving him my good liberal atheist answers, like, we don't know. If we go back to the same place we came from before we were alive, where's that? And so we thought a good idea would be we take him to a small group for kids, the Young Life.
Oh yeah.
Which was, he had lots of fun. And Lynn and I used to joke. We used to say, a lot of people are afraid their kid's going to come home and either be pregnant or on drugs. With our luck, our kid's going to come home and become a Christian. And he did. He was converted at the Spokane Interstate Fair. This is so horrifying and hilarious thing. These two adult men took my 12, 13-year-old son and his friend into a tent and prayed with him. Unsupervised. I'm like, so two guys took you into a tent. Then what happened?
Yeah.
Well, they prayed with me and we got saved. So I need to know, are you and mom going to heaven? Oh boy.
Yeah.
So eventually he started going to church regularly and I started going with him. And I eventually ended up, as we say in the religion, rededicating my life to Christ.
Yep. Yep.
In other words, changing my other mind again. So I went back and then he went to college and he started meeting up with this charismatic group on campus where they went out and did like the treasure hunt thing. And he said, I'm going down to Jesus Culture in California. He was in Bellevue, Washington at this time, going to college at Western Washington University. So he went down to Redding, California. And the next thing, he graduated from college and he told us, Mom, Dad, I'm not coming home. I'm going to Redding. I want to go into the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry.
Yep.
I'm like, what? So I started listening and I became convinced. I told my wife, Lynn, I said, our son has joined a cult. Come the holidays, he's invited us to come down and visit him down there. We're going to load up the RV, ready to get all of his stuff. We're going to bring him home and take him to a deep programmer if we have to.
Wow.
So we went down.
Were you serious about that? Like, for real?
Yeah.
For real?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. We stayed there for a week. They let us audit classes because they wanted to see what was going on. Audited the classes, saw people get prayed for, saw strange, amazing things happen. And we joined the cult instead of taking our son out of it. Wow. Actually, I don't think it's a cult.
Sure, I get you.
I think
yeah.
We joined and I still love Bethel. Still love the people there. Obviously, in any group of people, some of them are outside the bell curve of what's normal.
That's anywhere.
That's anywhere. It's true.
Yeah.
So what was your question? I'm just talking now.
No, I'm just fascinated with kind of what brought you into Bethel. And then what's interesting is you get put in a position to teach, preach, whatever, at their school of healing. And then right before then, you get diagnosed with this disease. You were excited about it because you translate this as like, hey, this is going to be an opportunity for God to heal me. Then he doesn't. So talk to me a little bit more about that. And was your son, the people from Bethel, like, did you get any crap for kind of deconstructing and leaving that world and starting to explore more stuff? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
I never got any crap. I mean, nobody was ever harsh with me. Everybody, I know that other people have different experiences. Everybody there has been nothing but loving to me over time.
Yeah.
And I feel the same about them. My son thought I was crazy, like going off, you get into all this woo-woo stuff and going back to like when you were younger and you read Carlos Castaneda and were trying to figure out what drugs it was he was smoking that was taking him off on these journeys to Ixtlan with Don Juan. It's so, Timothy Leary. And I mean, I went all around the options because I was looking for answers. And, I have a very good friend named Andy Mason who I met in Redding at Bethel. And he's stayed a true friend over the years that I've been in and out. He's been very non-judgmental. In a lot of ways, he's been a great model for me about how to deal with people who have different beliefs. Like I started off telling you, I was a convincer.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm a copywriter. I'm a sales guy.
Sure.
I never thought of myself that way, but I guess I am. I like to persuade people. But I've come to a point now where it's just not important to me to persuade anybody, because I don't think it's my job to do that. I think it's my job to just be the person I am. And if there's something about that helps someone along their journey, then great.
Yeah.
And if they want to ask me about Jesus, I'll talk to them about him. I still feel like I lost the thread of her question.
What
again.
brought you back to Jesus after kind of exploring all the things?
I have a real answer to that.
Let's go.
I co-wrote a book. A friend of mine is named Jeff Goins.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a great writer. My favorite book by him is Real Artists Don't Starve.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic book. But I was in Nashville having coffee with him, as I did every time I went into town. And he's asking me some of the same questions you're asking me now. And he said, dude, you should write a book about that. I'm like, okay. So we wrote it together. We did a lot of phone calls and recorded the conversations, and he would take notes and he'd send me a chapter or two and I'd revise it. And so he had me exploring all these different ideas, going back and reading books I'd read a long time ago, like Thus Spake Zarathustra and all these philosophical things I read when I was supposed to read them at 18, 19 years old, back when you're being the uber sophomoric examiner of life and trying to rebut everything your parents ever told you.
Yeah.
But I went through all that, and my what I'd call my dark period of nihilism. I got to a point where I was like, what if this is not real? If the things I believe in about the spiritual world are not real, then what is the point of even being here? And I came this close to taking my life.
Damn.
I had shoulder surgery. I was on OxyContin, and I was sitting in my living room with a ice machine holding my shoulder together, and a whole bottle of OxyContin and a whole bottle of Jim Beam, thinking, I can just consume both these. I'll feel really good and I'll be gone. All this pain will be over. But something inside of me thought about the pain that would cause everybody else around me, because I've been through that too, as family members or loved ones that I've known over the years have taken their own lives, and I just couldn't do that to them. So that was the last truck I had with that idea.
Wow.
But I began working my way back. I'm working my way back to you, Jesus. Not much of a singer anymore either. The Parkinson's has really affected me in a lot of ways. My voice, my ability to communicate clearly and persuasively was always like you could either say my superpower, or I think of it really more as my mask. I was able to put on a good show, get people to believe what I wanted them to believe about me. Inside, I had all these holes, and things needed to be healed, not diseases, but mental trauma and stuff from childhood. Things I used to laugh at and say, that's not real. That's not even real. You're just, I actually said about people, they're just weak. Oh, so messed up.
Yeah.
Still am, but I'm a little better. I'm the walking wounded now.
Damn. There's like 18 things in there that I want to touch on that you just said. First, before I ask you kind of my big question around what you just said, just to clarify, the book that you wrote with Jeff Goins, what was the title of that? Was it about Christianity or just like faith in general?
It's called Read This or Die. Persuade Yourself to a Better Life. And it's about this journey that I went through with the Parkinson's diagnosis.
What was the conclusion?
Re-examining my faith. The conclusion was, consider the lilies. They toil not, neither do they spin. Yet not even Solomon in all his glory is arrayed like one of these. So I concluded the book rather nebulously by saying to people, I had come back to the faith on my own terms. And I'm just saying to them, be present for your life, because this is the only one you're certain of getting.
I interviewed Michael Gungor the other day. He was like a big evangelical Christian worship leader. Um, we had we had a really interesting conversation, and one of the main things I pulled from that is he was talking a lot about like the death of the ego and kind of getting to a spot where you just lose everything. And in that place is like where you really find, he didn't use this word, but just the idea of salvation or whatever. And I've really wrestled with that because I grew up in, very prosperity isn't, I know you talk a lot about prosperity, not like just in money, but like healing and everything. If you I remember being in church and like if you're dealing with depression and anxiety, you don't need a therapist, you need to get right with the Lord, like that whole mentality.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
and so even though it's been probably 10 years since I've left that teaching in that church or whatever, I still notice inside of myself I have like a lot of resistance towards anything that goes against what I was taught, even though I don't cognitively believe it anymore. But this idea of like the death of the ego, the death of the self, and like really getting to kind of your darkest, weirdest places, it feels so, what's the word I'm looking for? Frustrating that that's actually the way God had set it up or intended it. Like it just doesn't make sense. If you know what I'm trying to say. So I'm curious if you think salvation really only comes through like struggle, like some people believe in the woo-woo world. Um, is that what you've concluded as a Christian, like why God allowed this to happen to you?
Um,
That's a really messy question.
there's about 18 things in there. I love that. Because that's how it is, right? You can't reduce this stuff down to like the 7 key questions of how to understand God's reality.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. I have found for myself that it was necessary because I've discovered going through this process of being broken. Physically, mentally, physiologically. My body doesn't work the way it's supposed to anymore.
Yeah.
I've got the electronics going. I got the medication going, which is why we're having this conversation now. I'm able to do it. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to God for inspiring the people who created all that. And I don't take any credit away from the scientists and doctors. They're amazing humans, and I appreciate everything they've done for me. I just celebrate it all.
Mm.
But I had to, at first I had a few people say to me right after I got the diagnosis, consider how this might be a gift. And I was like,
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
a gift? Let me give it to you. I'd be happy to hand it over to you and let you enjoy this gift.
Yeah.
Because it got hard, and in ways every day is still hard. There's just, I won't dig into it, but it's just, I get to a point during the day that I can't walk exactly right. And I have trouble doing things for myself. And it's difficult sometimes. And just last night, we had a great day yesterday, had a great evening last night. My wife and I were watching this fantastic French TV show called Astrid. If you haven't seen it,
I haven't seen it.
So good. It's about this young woman who has autism and helps with police investigations. That's off topic, Ray. Back on the trail. So I had to come to this place of brokenness where all my tricks, all my techniques, all my masks I mentioned earlier, all the disguises I had to hide from people and show them how truly successful I really was, got all stripped away from me, and I had to get humble. We declared, some people have called it medical bankruptcy.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as medical bankruptcy. There's just bankruptcy. We ran out of money and we spent too much, and I did my decisions.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was for my hardware, but that was also because I didn't have money. It's me. I take full responsibility for it. But I had to go through all this breaking to become humble enough to say, I got nothing. I came here with nothing. I have nothing. And I came back to Jesus because I was raised that way. It's what I believe. I believe he's the Son of God. I believe he died for our sins, was raised again. in case people are wondering. So I can be really clear. That's what I believe. I believed it all my life, even when I didn't believe it. I mean, I learned to pray in tongues when I was 14 years old. And at the age of 19, I was a disc jockey on the radio telling people I'm not a Christian. I didn't go to church. I said terrible things about God, about the Bible. But I'd be driving at night to these gigs where I played music for bachelor parties, and I was the DJ, the on-site DJ. And I'd be praying in tongues on my way there, on my way home, not even thinking about what I was doing. And I look back on that years later and think, what the heck was I doing? I think inside that was me. So you don't have to, I don't require anybody to believe what I believe, because guess what? God, as far as I can tell, did not require anybody to believe it. It's a choice. I have my own thoughts about who gets to heaven, what that is. I personally, it's just me. It's not a doctrine. Don't try to get me to back it up or give you 10 reasons why. I think we all end up in the same place.
Come on, a fist bump right there. Like I yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's
Let me ask you this. I just asked a friend this. I've been having a really good DM kind of conversation with a friend of mine who she didn't shout out Jordan. I know you're listening to this. She did not grow up in the church, and she just recently converted to Christianity. And I grew up in the church, and I'm trying to figure out, like, people say, are you a Christian? I'm like, what do you mean by Christian? Like, I'm very weary of it right now. But we're having a really, really good conversation. And I just asked her this morning, and she hasn't responded yet. And I want to hear it from you. I said, what did you find in the message of Jesus that you decided to come back, where she was kind of more in the mystic universal community, which is where I'm really leaning towards right now, more of a mystic Christianity, kind of Richard Rohr type vibe. And that's really resonating with me right now in this season. I always say season because who knows, next month.
right.
But I asked her, so what was missing in your yoga practice and universalism and all that? What was missing where you needed to come back to Jesus? And I want to pose that to you. You kind of go back and start studying or whatever, and you landed back in this Proverbs, I believe, this message of Jesus. Why?
It's a great question. In my younger years and through my journey, I've read all kinds of books, went to all kinds of churches, different religions. And I think of this apocryphal, I say apocryphal because
that's a big word.
I can't really find it written anywhere for sure that it happened. But Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic priest of the Franciscan order, he was a contemplative mystic monk. He almost left the church, but he said he was with the Buddhists, and he decided, I need somebody I can say thank you to. And when I read that, something hard and frozen in my heart melted. So I began reading a lot of Catholic literature. I have a great, deep, sympathetic view of the Catholic Church I never had before, because I was raised as a Baptist-costal. We thought they were the Antichrist.
Right. Literally.
I mean, I want to go back now and think, guys, did you realize they invented this? But that's a different discussion. I know great errors. The Catholic Church has done bad things. The Protestants have done bad things. We're all humans. Get enough of us together, we'll find a way to get up to bad things. But I love that moment of feeling like I need somebody to say thank you to, somebody to express my gratitude to. And I have a friend who's very much a non-believer, and we were having lunch a couple of weeks ago, and she said, why do you believe so strongly? I said, well, I don't always believe so strongly.
Yeah.
But, when it's dark and it's scary and I'm having pains or my body's doing weird stuff that makes me wonder, am I about to go into the great beyond? I very much believe then. And I think that's closer to the truth of who I am. And so, and because of my study of and practice of some of the mystical, more contemplative parts of Christianity, I've become there's a book called Practicing the Presence of God.
I've heard of
by
that.
Brother Lawrence.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, that's the most important part of my faith in Jesus and God and in the God of the Bible is trying to just be aware of the presence of God all around me. Richard Rohr writes about this in one of his books, that he writes about this other monk who suddenly saw Christ in everyone, everything, everywhere, and was changed by that vision. Yeah, come on. I want some of that.
Man. I want to ask you about our role as, now that we've laid like this foundation, this beautiful foundation for who you are, where you're at in your journey, your worldview, your connection. I want to talk to you about just our role as communicators and creators with that in mind. I know, and I'm always hesitant saying stuff like I know, because it's like, oh yeah, let me prove to you otherwise. Like that's what God's going to do. But
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, Heather. I'm really drawn to communication myself and storytelling. As I used to, I wanted to be a pastor so bad, like so bad. And even when I was a little girl,
You could rock that.
oh man, I think I disappointed a bunch of people that I didn't. But that's where I was heading, was to be a minister. And then when I left all of that, I really struggled finding kind of my footing like I mentioned earlier, over the past few years, I've just been drawn to this online space and the communication, and not necessarily social media for like, I'm going to do a trend and point to these, just kind of the dumb, silly stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's cool. That's fun. But also too, it's like you said it in one of your podcasts I was listening to, just the insane tool that we have in our hand and the reach that it has. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about your perception of whether, somebody listening proclaims they follow Jesus or they're on their own path, whatever. I think everybody listening to my show is really interested in using their voice to find truth and to share truth and to be truth and light in this world. Sometimes it can be a little confusing, our place in that, if we don't have all the answers and we're becoming so much more human. And I mean that with tech and AI and everything is just pushing us, I believe, more and more and more and more and more into our humanity, where we can't hide behind beautiful anesthetics anymore. We can't hide behind fancy websites because it's not impressive anymore. Anybody can do that now. Now what we're looking for is humans and connection and depth. But what is the thing that is getting stripped from us every single day? Our humanity, our connection, and our depth. So I just threw up all over you, but what is your perception on anything that I just said? You can start anywhere. This is
That's lovely.
Yeah.
It's the best job of throwing up all over me anybody's ever done. So thank you.
You're welcome.
It's such an interesting question, because especially now with the AI video stuff we're seeing, that is so real. I mean, it's like, I cannot tell. I used to be able to tell. I know I'm got a little gray going on here. I got the receipts, as they say, but no cap, I was able to tell.
I got to show my daughter you just said that. That's awesome.
And now I can't tell, and I think, good God, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
We can't believe anything we see on there now. But there's this huge movement for authenticity. I'm like, oh, come on, guys, that's not new. But I do think it was Henry Kissinger who said, once you can fake being authentic, you can get anything done you want.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
I think if the question is is it a good thing for us to use our voice, and how do we do it responsibly? I don't know how any of that works. I know I'm drawn to do it. I love learning things. I love sharing what I've learned with other people. I think my wife wishes I was not such a sharer. Biggest mistake I made in my life was I wrote the book, Read This or Die, and sent it to the publisher without showing it to my wife first. Oh, that's a lesson you don't want to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So she says, everybody in the world is going to read that. I said, well, if everybody in the world reads it, you won't have any complaints about it. But no, I don't think everybody will. Just the people you don't want to, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think sharing and being authentic, and this is truly whatever you believe, whether it's similar to what I believe, or as long as you're not like doing bad things. I think if we feel drawn to communicate and share things, and even if we're, in my case, arrogant enough to think we can teach people something, then I think it's really important that we teach them good things, that we talk so much about all the toxicity that's online. Well, here's the answer. Replace it with something good.
Come on.
My friend Pat Flynn was interviewing him about his new book, Lean Learning, which is a great book.
He's awesome.
He's such a great human. I asked him, I said, if you could, let's take that Tim Ferriss question. Let's say you could take the billboard in Times Square and put any message on it you want. He instantly said, love one another. That's it. That's it.
That really moves you when you say that. What is it about that message of love one another that moves you?
Well, in the religion that Jesus grew up in, there was like 630 some rules you had to follow to be righteous. And Jesus said, if you love me, you follow my commandments. And here is my commandment, singular. Love one another. This is how they'll know you're my disciples, by your love for one another. That was it. There was no Christian backpack that he loaded up with a bunch of crap we're supposed to carry around.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
In my opinion. If you had just thoughts around kind of the way we communicate as storytellers, kind of like more big philosophical, not detailed thoughts, but just from a philosophical standpoint. I've been reading a lot of storytelling books, and I've read a lot of, believe it or not, even though I'm like on this show, how to be a better speaker and so forth. And there's a lot of good tips, and not to discredit anything that people have said, but sometimes I feel like we're just looking for people who are lit up more than anything, not necessarily well put together and articulate about everything, but somebody who has just fire in their bones. And I haven't found a lot of books about that, about Heather staying lit up and Heather staying connected and Heather having something to say, not just how do I say it, but what is there to say. So do you have any thoughts around that? Maybe people who feel spiritually dry, or maybe go to tactics more than fire in their bones? That's a leading question. That's a leading question, I realize, but
I love this topic though. Storytelling, copywriting, radio, preaching. Well, there's a theme there. It's all, and Jesus. He did not teach big, long exegetical sermons. He told stories.
Yeah.
There was a woman who lost a coin. She swept her house to try to find it. There was a shepherd who lost one sheep, and he went out looking for it. There was a man who built his house on the rock, and a man who built his house on the sand. Stories. And all the great teachers of history were the same way. And I think the stories that I've had the opportunity to tell, I've told the well-articulated, carefully constructed ones. And they always have had less impact than the ones that just came from my belly.
Yeah.
My wife will hate the fact I use the word belly in this podcast now. She told me I'm not allowed to use it with any adults when she's not present.
I'm laughing because it sounds like this is you're so relatable. Something me and my husband would argue about. That's funny. So,
But when I tell a story that costs me something, but I feel like it'll help the people I'm telling it to, those are the stories that seem to matter.
cost you something.
Yeah. Parkinson's has cost me, but it's given me a lot of material.
Yeah.
And important material, because it's taught me about what's important.
Mm.
I mean, I started off earlier talking about how people said, think of it as a gift.
Mm.
And I got so angry. But Heather, it has been such a gift. I was such an arrogant asshole before. I really was. I thought of early on, I thought of people as either an obstacle in my way or a stepping stone or a tool to get me where I wanted to go or somebody I could make a sale to. That was the way I started out life thinking. And this gift has made me more humble, more empathetic. I hesitate to say more humble. I didn't say humble. I just said more humble. I state that for the record, because I can always learn more humility as I keep learning over and over again. More empathetic. I mean, I used to not pay attention to older people at the airport or people in a wheelchair, people walking with a cane. Now my eye is drawn to those folks because they're my people. The hobbling, the shaky, the person who has the weak, quavering voice, and they seem to be a frail old person, but inside I know they're thinking, I'm still me. I'm still the same person. Only I have more to offer. I have more wisdom if people would just take time to talk to me and listen to me. So whatever that thing is inside, the rule of thumb for me is if it makes me scared or uncomfortable, I need to talk about it.
Wow.
Because that's the real stuff.
That's the real stuff. You did not have to say yes to a random Southern gal on the internet to spend an hour of your precious time with us and opening up about your story and letting me poke and ask some probing questions about your faith. Thank you for not only your time here, but also just being willing to go there with people. I think it's a beautiful gift to share not just what your faith is, but also your doubts, because it helps the rest of us not feel so scared to wrestle with God a little bit and that he's not upset about that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Before my last question, is there something you're really pumped about, really excited about that you want to point our listeners to? I know you have, I believe, a certification for AI copywriter or something like that, which is pretty wild. We need to talk about what that is. But is that something you want to point our listeners to, or is there something else?
Just you can just go to rayedwards.com, and if you sign up, if you see something there, we've got a lot of free stuff. Or if you want to get on my email list, I promise I'll email you about something that you might be interested in. It's just in my bones.
Yeah.
AI copywriting, that's a whole different show, because AI writing, AI art, AI videography, AI photography, where does the AI stop and the humans start, and vice versa? And the purists, I could do a whole riff on that whole thing, because it's the important issue of our times, I think.
You're not lying. I had this
No,
crazy thought the other day. I'm thinking about doing like a little mini series on social or something with it, but I thought about, and I don't know what the age group would be, but folks who did not grow up with the internet, which I think would be just a few years older than me, because we got the internet in our home when I was 12 or 13, I think. But I'm thinking of somebody who did not have the internet at all till they left the house. Those are the last I'm calling like real humans, in the sense that they're pure human without any technology interference with their development. And that's a little dramatic of a title, but I think
But it's true because I grew up without the internet, and I know.
and our brains are different. My brain is wired different than my mother. My daughter's brain is wired different than mine, and so forth. And it's not because of necessarily we're hugely different, our lifestyles were hugely different, but engaging in a digital identity has changed us on a biochemical level, I'm convinced.
Me
But
too.
anyways, I'm trying to get you out of here, and here I am opening a big ass door. Very last question. All that will be linked in the show notes. Very last question. What is something in your life that you are currently questioning? It could be something really deep. It could be something really silly. But what have you had like a big question mark around?
When is enough enough?
Mm.
What is my enough? To be, in other words, I'm talking about the big one now, money, stuff, achievement.
Yeah.
When is it enough? I just want to enjoy being with my wife and my dogs and my books, some good food, some laughs, some great music. That's enough.